So, Sachs, you've had the pleasure of meeting already and getting to know him a little bit yesterday over dinner at the hotel. But just to fill you in on his achievements and on his ability to contribute to this conference and its topic, Sachs was born in Peshawar in Pakistan, and he's a New York-based artist whose work occupies a self-defined genre he calls sci-fi Sufism, a spiritual and speculative practice that explores the vast galaxies within the self using Sufi poetry, South Asian folklore, Islamic mythology, science fiction, and calligraphy. But besides being an artist, he's also an advertising man, a creative director on brands such as Mercedes-Benz and MTV, whose commercial discipline would later infuse his art with narrative precision and cultural ambition. Afridi will walk the audience through key works in his creative journey, including his landmark Space Mosque exhibit, a futuristic work in which he fuses Islamic mysticism, again, folklore, architecture, and technology, while reflecting candidly on what it has meant to navigate the creative industries as a Muslim. Without further ado, Sachs Afridi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. I'm just going to get my shirt. I was talking to my dad this morning, and he made me promise to wear a shirt. So I'm going to wear a shirt. I'm glad this is being recorded, Baba. I am officially wearing a shirt. It's funny. This is called Muslim futurism, and you.
Can we just move these away so that we can see your
Yeah, that would be great. Can they be minimized?
Oh yeah, you can minimize.
There we go. Even better. Yeah. So thank you for introducing me both as Thaqib, or Sachs. The word Thaqib comes from the Quran, and the full phrase is a Najm al-Thaqib, which means, technically it means shooting star, but what it really means is a piercer into the future. So there is a connection with futurism there. It's a mandate, perhaps. And in Pakistan, the tha becomes the sa, and so it becomes Saqib, and people always messed up my name. So when I shifted to be an artist, I was like, let me think of a moniker that is memorable as well. But I go by both. And I'm glad there's a few students here, because I wanted to talk about the expectation from our parents and and the world, and then how we choose to express ourselves while wearing it. Notice this is not buttoned down or tucked in. So we can kind of talk about that as well. So it's, how do I? Here we go. There's a next button. So I'm a creative director in advertising. I'm an artist. I'm an author. I've written 2 or 3 books about cars and other things. And yeah, I'm a car enthusiast and a few other things. So I'm going to be kind of going in and out of the journey. So my father worked for Pakistan Airlines. So I kind of grew up moving countries and places around the world every 2 or 3 years. I was born in Peshawar, Pakistan, but then we moved to Libya, we moved to Sri Lanka, we moved to Saudi Arabia, 3 different cities in Pakistan, South Africa, right after Mandela was elected, apartheid was lifted, and then Dubai. And about 30 years ago, I came to the US for college, and I have been here since. How I got here was also a funny story. My father was posted in Dubai, and so I was going to Sharjah University there, which was affiliated to Connecticut State University, and that was my way in. How I got to Sharjah University was a total fluke. Somebody just happened to mention it, and next thing you know, I was there. Of course, nothing is a fluke, and everything is planned and preordained. So, alhamdulillah for that. When I got to college, I'd made a deal with my dad, or my parents. I wanted to be a musician. My father really was a sportsman, and he wanted to push me into sports, and he did. And as a rebellious teenager, I picked up the guitar instead. And so I joined a rock band and, all of that stuff. And so he just he said, just do me a favor, make a deal with me. Get me a bachelor's degree where I know you can get a job and then do whatever you want. So I promised him I would get a bachelor's degree. So I majored in bachelor's of business science, but I minored in photography. And minoring in photography got me to open up into the dark room, got me to experience what this new thing called Photoshop was. And back in like version 3.0, when you couldn't even have multiple undos. Uh, but it was this great tool that prior to that, people were collaging things or photographing things, and it was so difficult. And Photoshop came and really kind of exploded and changed the way we work, kind of like how AI is doing today. So we can get into that as well. But because I picked up Photoshop and a friend of mine in college happened to know HTML and websites were becoming a thing, and he's like, and the dot-com boom was becoming a thing, and so he's like, hey, why don't we start doing some web design work and see what that's about. And so while in college, we started designing websites for local clients, and it was still business, but it was also this world of creativity of, well, what can websites look like? What do layouts and all of that kind of work? And that kind of got me into the world of design. These are some of the things that were around back in 98, 99. And so I got an opportunity to move to start a design firm with some friends at around 1999, around 2000, and we started a firm called Green Soap Design. I was trying to operate it from New York. All our clients were in San Francisco, so two or three of our clients just said, "What are you doing? Either jump in or jump out." So we said, "All right, let's fully jump in." So we started a design firm, moved to San Francisco, and then we ended up having some clients like Adobe and some of the others here as well, uh, which was a great learning experience because you get to kind of understand clients from a branding perspective and where they want to take it, but also how web design was moving at the time and how communication can be done. And one of my partners at the time was also in advertising. And I really started noticing that, wow, he does 30-second storytelling. That's very interesting. I want to start telling stories in the world of 30 seconds. And so I decided to join the Academy of Art in San Francisco. But I didn't want to go for a full 4-year degree and, pay for private school and all of that. There was a lot of that. So I made a barter deal with them. I said, I'll teach web design and branding in exchange for your 400 level portfolio building classes in advertising. So I did that for a couple of semesters, put together a print portfolio and put together a TV reel, an advertising reel. They partner you with a student from the film school, and you usually shoot one commercial over the course of the semester. I ended up shooting 7, I think, that semester, and 2 of them ended up winning some awards, like some Clio awards and things like that. And that got me a job offer to move to Dubai. And so I joined an agency in Dubai called TBWA. Uh, Nissan was probably our biggest client there, and yes, MTV and some candy and other stuff like that. But while we were living there 2 or 3 years, I got to experience clients and communication I had in the US, and now I did in the MENA region, in the Middle East, North Africa region. And so we would work with multiple dialects, languages, messaging, a lot of adaptation, what works globally, what works regionally. I had the pleasure of, creating work around the region in Lebanon, Syria, etc. And so that was a great experience. And after 2 or 3 years of doing that, I really felt this need to kind of do more, create bigger, better, more interesting storytelling. And that got me to New York. Uh, Taking some of the experience I'd had there, I came back to New York and joined an agency called Merkley and Partners. Their main account, our main client is Mercedes-Benz. I've also worked on White Castle. I don't know if you guys have ever eaten White Castle, but they make these amazing little cool sliders. There's movies about them and everything. They're a real cultural phenomenon. As is Mercedes-Benz, so cars and fast food. And this was around 2008. So coming in and after a few years of experience working at Merkley in New York, it was I, I guess a real eye-opening experience for me in the best way. I got to absorb a lot, but by virtue of living in New York, you also get to go to museums and cultural institutions, and you get to like learn more. And that this brought up my need for storytelling even more. And I decided I was like, I've got all these ideas and thoughts that I wanted to do something about it. And the decision wasn't really mine. A lot of this also, I have to give credit to my wife, Susie Afridi, who was a big supporter of, let's follow our passions and try to create our expressions, even when the expectations are different. So again, much to my parents' dismay at the time, they're like, "What? You're quitting your job to do what?" I'm not going to show you some commercials right now. But if you do go, this is where I meant to land about taking the leap. But before taking the leap, I was gonna show you a reel of work, but I'm not gonna do that. Nobody wants to sit and watch commercials. You can, if you've ever seen any Mercedes-Benz TV commercial over the last few months and over the, I guess, course of the foreseeable future, my team and I have been, lucky enough to have been behind it. But at that point, decided to just take this leap to become an artist. There's some kind of I don't know. We must have taken some kind of divine, crack cocaine leap and said, "Let's do it." And so I did. 3 years later, the money ran out. But during those 3 years, so we decided to just live off of our savings and do what we could. So 2.5, 3 years or so. But during that time, I did about 18 projects, and that was a really good base to set up my art practice kind of moving forward. And I'm just going to show you a few things here and there. This particular project was a collaboration between me and four other people, Ali Rez, Akash Gol, Assam Khalid, and the French artist JR. This was a time, 2010 or so. No, actually 2013 or so, 2013, 14, when the drone attacks were happening in Pakistan. Obama's drone attacks were happening just left, right, and center. And we would see just family. So sad how today that's just ho hum, yet another drone attack. But back then it was kind of new and shocking. And so we noticed that people called the drone operators called kills bug splats because that's what they looked like on their screens. And so we named this project called Not a Bug Splat. And we wanted to put a face to these bug splats. So we took a photo of a little girl whose family was lost in the drone attacks, and we printed it the size of a football field and laid it out in the bombed areas of Pakistan so the drone operators could see what their what they're targeting exactly. This was seen from, satellites from the sky and everywhere as well. So in fact, this image is from a drone itself. It got a lot of press, news. We made every possible news outlet, I think, for the next month or so. And we like to think that it contributed towards the drone attacks stopping about 6 months to 8 months later. This was part of a backlash movement around it. So activism is also part of, it has been just by virtue of the need to express, the need to tell our stories. This really was a part of it. And speaking of our stories, I don't think I would have ever decided to want to be an artist, to want to express more than just, superficially, if it wasn't for 9/11. That really was the impetus to the need to build bridges and explain the beauty of Islam, because it was in front of our eyes, just being completely dismantled, and to the benefit of what was politically needed at the time. So I kind of saw that as a reason to get into it on the activism side, but also on the personal development side. It's also equally important to look within ourselves. They say you point, and three fingers are pointing to yourself. So we have to also kind of, I felt, had to kind of like really look within myself too. And that's where I kind of rediscovered being a Muslim. And I did it through Qawwali music. So Pakistan is home, so is India, and in general, South Asia is home to Qawwali music, which is a type of Sufi poetry music sung in groups. And the Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan is one of the kind of legends of Qawwali music, and the poetry and writings there really kind of got me to fall in love with Islam, fall in love with the idea of Sufism. And South Asian Sufism is also different than what it's like in other parts of the Islamic world too. And it's usually the poetry is in Punjabi and Urdu, and they're, I would say, as much depth as it is in Arabic, as and Farsi as well. So this was a piece, or what you're seeing is part of a piece called Code Switching, and it was a celebration of, I guess, South Asian makers, engineers, designers, creators, living in this world of technology, and how we lived in the negative spaces and weren't sort of highlighted. I noticed when I was in Dubai, one of the sad things about Dubai is the way people are colorized by the color of their skin. And I just happen to be born with a lighter shade of skin. And so because of that, they would send me to go do the presentations. Somebody else would do the work, right? They were wonderful creatives, genius guys and girls who would make the work, and rightly so, they should be presenting the work, but they didn't. They would send me to go present it because I was more presentable, which is, I found icky. But it's the world of business, and it's the world of mindsets, and all of that. So I understand that this comes from colonialism, colonization mindsets, and all of that. It played a role, and so a lot of these creators lived in the background. And so this work was intended to celebrate them. And how this piece works in real life once you interact with it is it's a lenticular. Does anyone know what a lenticular is? So a lenticular, if you, I'm sure all of us here as kids had one of those cards that you would turn and then the image would turn. You know, you'd whether it was a baseball player or it was a sportsman or a superhero, whatever. Those images turn. So this is essentially that technology, which is the layers of prisms of images in between prisms. And as you kind of walk past them, about 45 degrees, the image transforms. So in this, the calligraphy would go back and the engineering schematic comes forward. And then as you kind of walk past it, the schematic comes forward, the calligraphy comes forward, so it goes back and forth. By the way, this calligraphy is lyrics from this particular piece called Gorak Dhanda by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. It's about a 30-minute piece. There's a link on it on YouTube with lyric translations. It's really wonderful. It talks about what a strange being God is and the dichotomies of it all. So yeah, in this series, there's other stuff, but moving on, I'm kind of, I guess the technical term is multidisciplinary artist. So I work in different mediums, whatever the idea calls for, or the concept calls for. So this was one of my first pieces was this rug, which was a hand-woven Persian rug, hand-woven in Pakistan, that is of a UFO in the center of a Persian rug. Usually, when there's a medallion there, the UFO replaced the medallion. It's kind of about this idea of being an insider outsider. It is this what I call this practice of achieving a sense of belonging while being out of place and finding happiness in a state of temporary permanence. So we've all felt like aliens. Whether it's I don't know about you all, but I feel like an alien in New York. I feel like an alien in Pakistan, and I feel at home in both places at the same time. So this idea of being of both and finding comfort and finding yourself in this trapeze balancing act is kind of really what this piece is about. Similarly, as I started looking into, so the UFO rug, the insider outsider rug was kind of my first foray into this woven world. And I started working with weavers in Afghanistan, in Iran, in Pakistan. And I was like, all right, well, what other ways because Islamic geometry is very much rooted in this idea of the infinite, which, by the way, if you look at some of these engineering schematics, and if you ever look at a circuit board, you'll notice how similarly and closely it aligns with the patterns of a Persian rug. They both have a central piece. They both have circuitry kind of moving outwards. You can, in fact, overlay them, and there's a lot of cross blending and matching. So I've done some lenticular works in that area as well. But at the same time, I decided to try and deconstruct and break our existing Islamic patterns that we have and what else can we do there? So, for example, this piece on the left, which is called Space-Time Continuum, is taking the central area and kind of turning it into a door. And this is a doorway of, stepping in, whether it's, into yourself, into the, into the light of Allah, or into your next, step. This piece can be on the floor. It can also be mounted on the wall. For example, the one on the right is mounted on a wall. So you're seeing it vertically. And they can both work that way. So, similarly, I have other pieces, woven pieces as well, that are kind of in the same vein. But taking geometry and just kind of twisting them to see other aspects and other ways of expressing it. And then of expression, I want to talk about this piece, which is called The Great Refusal. It was a term taken from Herbert Marcuse. Uh, it's a slingshot, but it is also the Arabic word for no, la. And it's got this the rubber of the slingshot there as well, and you can see the front and back angle. But the slingshot doesn't work. It doesn't bend. It doesn't really, shoot anything. And if it did, it wouldn't really harm anything compared to what is on the other end. You've got drones and Palantir and everything else, and then you've got slingshots. So this idea of using our words, this is an opportunity to speak, to use the words, may be the more effective slingshot. So it's kind of a conversation around that. My wife is Palestinian, so this is dinner table conversation for us. She wakes up and within 10 minutes, it's, settler colonialism, over the breakfast table. So it gets a little heavy sometimes, but we try to make light of it and find the humanity in it all. Speaking of making light or trying to find more meanings within things, as a Muslim, a Pakistani Muslim whose Arabic was not my first language, since then I've kind of learned it, but we were made to read the Quran, just like millions of people in Indonesia and India and other non-Arabic speaking countries where Muslims have to read or are encouraged to read the full Quran. But we read it without knowing any of the words, what they mean, nothing. It's just, we could be reading Greek. So we could be reading Jay-Z lyrics here, which is exactly what this is. This is a song by Jay-Z called Somewhere in America. And it says, up on top, you can see Somewhere in America, yellow Lambo in the driveway, a $1.35, I'm on the highway, Frank Sinatra on the Sonos, loud as fuck, I did it my way, might crash your internet, I ain't even into that. Last something about feds lurking, everyone's, yeah. Somewhere in America, Miley Cyrus is still twerking. Twerk it, Miley. And so, you could take those lyrics and replace them and put them there, and it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't know the difference. So this piece is about the miseducation of blind faith, taking the old gospel and the new gospel, which is hip hop, and and questioning this idea of let's know what we are learning. And so it's an invitation really to do that. And again, in this idea of deconstructing things, Pakistan, Iran, India, 15th, 16th century created this whole beautiful art movement of miniature painting. And if you ever see illuminated manuscripts or miniature paintings, there are these beautiful royal scenes or scenes of life. So I kind of took a traditional miniature painting and deconstructed it and applied gravity to it. So this is a painting called Gravity Painting, and it was the first of many. This I collaborated with a miniaturist in Pakistan. His name is Kausar Iqbal. So I have to say one thing that I've learned from advertising and brought into art, and there are things I've learned from art that I bring into advertising, is that collaboration makes the work better, or it can make the work better if you allow it. If you put your ego aside and determine that what you had in your head when you started with this idea and where it can go can be different, and you don't have to prescribe it from here, from original ideation to what the final product is, it's never going to be good if that's the way it is. The iteration that happens along the time, the exploration, the giving up of ideas, and the openness of embracing new ideas is how work develops. If you see the original design layout that I had for this piece, and then where it ended up with because of Kausar Iqbal's hand and how it changed, that's very much part of that process. Furthermore, we did two paintings of this gravity series. And then maybe 3-4 years ago, as the emergence of AI started happening, and I got invited to be on some early AI trials to experiment with some of these technologies. I started feeding this one AI tool our gravity paintings. And then I started saying, all right, I'd like to incorporate elements X, Y, and Z into it. And it spat out a bunch of different versions and iterations, which I found fascinating. And I kept going and going and going and prodding deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I would take it and I would take it into Photoshop and I would tweak it more and then I'd bring it back. And there's a whole journey of this back and forth ping pong that I play with AI tools. It's never one output, one prompt equals one output. Never. That's just slop. But if you go in and you know what you have in mind, or directionally what you have in mind, it's a great tool to kind of taking you further. So we developed more versions and variants of this series, again in digital form, which then I sent over to Kausar again, and he painted them. And so it went from traditional to digital, back to traditional. And then his incorporation of his hand that goes into the work, again, makes it look different. But this time we did something different. We actually included AI as part of the process. Since these were early days, actually, I don't think I have any of those works up. No, I don't. But since they were early days, there would be an extra limb. There would be some sort of like random leg sticking out of here and all of that. We left it all in. We left it all in the paintings as a archive of, oh, look how cute AI was when it couldn't figure out limbs. And so that is now forever recorded in these paintings. And that's a whole kind of body of work. You can go to my website and see the gravity paintings of 2024, 2023 to 24. And I think we have maybe 8 or 9 pieces there. Uh, you know, this is also another example of how engineering schematics, can look a lot like Islamic geometry as well. And this is another example of the code switching series. Another Sufi Qawwali piece, less Qawwali, but definitely Sufi piece by Abda Parveen called Ek Nukte Vich Gal Mukti. One point. There's only one point where everything comes down to. In this case, the one point is the divine. So jumping into this art world, I'm like, all right, doesn't matter. Just gonna express, and doors will open. Things will find their way. No, it's been an uphill battle. It really has. If you're going to be talking about Islam, if you're going to be trying to build bridges, there are going to be people who are going to put roadblocks in your bridges. That's just going to happen. So we have to kind of continue making our own spaces like this and our own people to lift us up. Because as that happens, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to say our own people. I mean to say open-minded individuals who embrace the other and are willing to look beyond just their own belief systems and the narratives that they've been fed. And that's very hard, especially in a city like New York. But so far, I've managed to do it. I'm kind of at a point where, I should have mentioned earlier when the money ran out. When the money ran out about in 2016 or so, after about doing art for three-ish years, my old boss at Merkley called me and said, "Come back." I said, "Man, you couldn't have called it a better time. We're down to our last $5,000." And I said, but I've got this art practice. I can't just leave it. And he said, don't leave it. I love what you've been making. Continue making it. Just come work. And as long as the clients are happy, continue making your work. That man's name is Andy Hirsch. And it is because of him that I was able to continue making art because he saw it, he allowed it, and he made space for me to continue expressing that while being able to have a salary and insurance and being able to pay rent. Because as an artist, if you're struggling to pay rent, you're going to start thinking about the work that you make, and you're going to have this three-word question in your head: will it sell? And that changes your expression. The expectation is to make money, and then therefore the expression changes. But if you're going to then be able to create from the heart and be able to truly follow your your initial goal of building bridges, then you have to be able to express freely. And this gave me, to this day, the opportunity to do that, which is why I'm still with Merkley. And now so still making car ads and working with esteemed clients like Mercedes-Benz, who are wonderful, who also very much know and appreciate my art practice and are embrace it. So this idea of embracing from both sides, from the corporate side, but from the art side, we just have to find open-minded individuals to help us do that. All right. So all this ideation of looking into self, looking into engineering schematics, I started noticing like heads-up displays on spaceship engines and all of that. And I'm a big sci-fi nerd anyway. The movie The Arrival had just come out. I don't know if you guys have seen The Arrival. It's a great sci-fi film. I had just finished reading Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, kind of connected to The Arrival. I just finished recently seeing this show at the Palais de Tokyo by a Japanese artist called Yoji Sagamoto, who also kind of plays in a speculative world. And then my son, who's doing Islamic school every Sunday, had just gone through the Isra and Miraj story as well. And so all of these things were kind of floating in the air. And one day I read this quote, which was, if all your prayers were answered, would it change the world or just yours? And this and all of these other things culminating together sort of gave me I shouldn't say gave me the light bulb of this idea. This idea was given to me. And it was now up to me to take it and expand it and do something with it. I don't think ideas they come from within us. I think we're all given all the inspiration and given the tools and given the idea. And then it's up to us to be able to see it and act on it and express it. So I'm going to take you through the world of Space Mosque over the next few slides. Around the turn of the millennium, a global phenomenon occurred which has since been erased from our memories. Due to the arrival of a strange spaceship from the future, a spiritual machine, every human being on the planet got one prayer answered every 24 hours, or had the opportunity to have one prayer answered every 24 hours. Can you imagine a world where that could happen? So the first, the vessel appeared in countless forms. We later learned that it uniquely manifested itself based on the faiths of the people looking at it. The very first one was seen over Karachi in Pakistan. I gotta say, I'm really sick of seeing UFOs on the White House. And, Area 51, 53, whatever. All right, let's start a sighting somewhere else. So this sighting was in Pakistan, in Karachi. And one of the first few journalists that saw it, because it manifests itself differently based on your own faiths, they saw a hovering minaret in the sky. So they immediately, on the news that night, they called it Space Mosque. And the moniker kind of stuck throughout the course of this phenomenon, which we think is between 2002 to 2005. It was around the time that this happened. Others saw winged butterflies, others saw temples, others saw like lots of other, whatever their inner sort of expression for their faith was in the sky. And this vessel was a spiritually conscious spaceship, an energy station, a prayer gateway. Its divine algorithms and foresight technology determined the selection of prayers it chose to answer. So you couldn't just willy-nilly pray for anything and it would get answered. You had to have the niyyah, the intention for it to work. So the first sighting was in Pakistan. We saw some more in Lahore, Egypt, around North Africa, Iowa, and everywhere else. So, what would happen in a world where suddenly one UFO, one spaceship is seen all over the world? By the way, there were not multiple. There was one, and it was everywhere. So, as people are starting to see it, miracles started happening. And maybe 2-3 weeks into it, people noticed that, my prayer just got answered. Somebody else said, oh, yeah, that's happening with me too. I wonder, could this be connected? And so all of this started happening. And so here we have a newspaper from that time of a story of so there were some big stories that happened, but there were also little human stories that happened. And here's a story of a 12-year-old boy in Kohat, Pakistan, this is from a Pakistani newspaper. So his parents were separated and he lived with his mother, but he was close with his father. And so he did dua that night. He prayed that night and asked God to be able to spend more time with his father. So the next morning, his sandals grew wings. And every day after school, he would fly to go see his dad, who lived about an hour away, and come back. And this made the news. And so we have this newspaper article and also this artifact from that time, which is this winged Hawa sandal. So remember earlier I talked about intentions and how realizations could become, prayer can be realized once you have a good intention? Well, a good intention means you can't have jealousy, you can't have ego, you can't have these things polluting your prayer. So some creative entrepreneurs realized or noticed that their children's prayers were being answered at a much higher rate than adult prayers. So he started doing an experiment with his kid's classroom. Some teacher was sick, and the classroom collectively prayed for that teacher to get better. It happened. The next day, they tried another one and another one, and then they realized, oh, I think we're onto something here. And this gave rise to the prayer farms. And the prayer farms were these campuses of students, children, and their parents and their families to all live together in these enclosed multi-religious communities where there's housing, health, comforts, everything kind of taken care of. Your kids have to go to school, but they do have to pray 3 or 4 hours during the day as part of the curriculum. That's the deal. So, orphanages were turned into prayer farms, and before you knew it, the global currency changed from money to prayer. Because what's the first thing people do when when prayers are being answered? Everyone's going to pray for money, and then money becomes completely devalued. And then what's the newest currency that comes up? Prayer is the de facto global currency. And so, much like we humans do, is we try to find a way to capitalize on it and to use it to our benefit. And so that's kind of what these prayer farms started doing. And before you knew it, corporations were clients of the prayer farms. Countries were clients of the prayer farms. Religions were clients of the prayer farms because suddenly priests, rabbis, imams are all feeling like they used to be the conduit to God, and now they're not. And so people aren't coming to them anymore. Their congregations are left empty because people have already found another conduit to God. And so this got them jealous, annoyed, irate, and they became clients of the prayer farms. And suddenly that shift in dynamic changed. Here's an example of another ad. So this is, our favorite consulting firm. I'm just going to read it to you. Keep your money safe from the prayers of others. Does your money have a spiritual firewall? If not, then your money could be at risk. Our patented system is the only solution that allows for intent corrective diversion strategies while simultaneously being backed up by our global prayer campuses dedicated entirely to you, our clients. You've worked hard for your money. Let us help you keep it. So no new money was really invented. It was existing money that just moved hands, and rich people don't like their money being taken away from them. So, the consulting firms came in and said, no, 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 we'll help you keep your money. We'll use prayer to help you keep your money. So, things like that happened. But eventually, this commercialization of prayer and corporate greed were the primary reason for the global riots that happened. Now, initially, when the global riots happened, they prayed it all away. And the next day, everybody who was irate and, up in arms about it, suddenly woke up the next day, not too bothered by it, because it was prayed. Their mind shift was kind of prayed away by children with pure intention. But what happens when children with pure intention pray for not so pure things? The vessel itself started getting corrupted. It started getting affected by this. And some more imagery from the global riots that happened. And then, one day the vessel vanished. It just went away. And we believe that, and along with it, all memory of its existence, just a few remnants of glitched stories and artifacts scattered around the globe. We don't know the exact reasons for the vessel's departure, but our findings reveal that the global riots really had a big role to play with it. And one of the theories among the researchers, a popular theory among the researchers of the phenomenon, is that perhaps enough people on the planet prayed for it all to go away and to be forgotten that it was. However, it wasn't a clean break because of its glitched escape. Some artifacts were left behind. So here, for example, some of these artifacts. This particular hand is taken from the vessel itself had these robotic beings, these anthropomorphic neo-generative energy living systems or angels that would pray, and their prayers kept the spaceship going. That was the energy of the vessel itself. So we have some sightings, some findings there. Here's another piece called the prayer catcher, which we believe played a critical role in the prayer realization process. Again, found in a different part of the world. Here are some other artifacts that were found in different parts of the world as well. We don't know exactly what all their functionality was. Some of them were prayer capsules. Some of them were receptors of taking spiritual intent and converting them into ones and zeros. Some of them were just different objects within the spaceship that we didn't necessarily understand. And mind you, this is also taken from perhaps one person's perspective of the spaceship because it lived in different areas. We have some documentation of where I understand that there are some folks here who literally do this for a living. So, but some artifacts from around the time. All right, I'm going to step out of the phenomenon now and come back into into the reality of how the behind the scenes of how some of this was made. So you may notice I talk about this as though it really happened. And the reason I do that is because the exhibit is entirely showcased as parafiction, as something that actually made to look real. It's made to look real. Believe it or not, I've had people come up to me and say, did this really happen? Because of the way the newspapers touch, and I got them printed in the actual newspapers. Like they were printed in the actual newspaper presses. And, similarly, some of these other kind of aspects of it. But this doesn't happen just, alone. For example, I collaborated with an architect professor at Pratt and UPenn. His name is Ferda Kolatan. So I convinced Ferda to take his entire spring 2018 semester class of architecture students and help design some of these artifacts. So all those artifacts that you saw, you'll see I have credits given to the students who made some of these, and here are all the students that worked on it. The brief was simple, like I explained the concept to them, and then we had this idea of spiritual machines. So we put together a group of 3D assets of Islamic architecture and another group of 3D assets of spaceships and engines and other components, and gave it to them and said, go ahead and kit bash. The only thing is we don't want it to look overly Islamic. We don't want it to look overly sci-fi. We want it to be in this middle place. So I think we managed to do that to some degree. But some of them became sculptures, and some of them just became digital prints made to look like artifacts as though they're real and photographed like artifacts. So that was kind of the process of how it all came about. Beyond the architecture aspect of it, remember I told you the story of the boy with the winged sandals? Well, I made that piece as a sculpture for the exhibit. But then as I worked with the people to do that, we're like, well, what if it was an actual product? And so from that sculpture, we developed, again, collaborated with a shoe company in Pakistan called Marhor, and developed these winged sneaker sandals. And they have the base of sneakers. They're like Vans or Converses. And they're these, leather traditional Peshawari sandals from where I've born. And they have these, Hermes type wings on them. They're not too big where I should have worn them today. Actually, now that I think about it, I should have worn them. And I usually do during the summers. I should have worn them. I'm still in winter headspace right now. But yeah, anyhow, so these then ended up, being a product, and now they're available, and people buy them. Here's just some imagery from them. And last thing I'll say is Space Mosque is now. I'm very happy to say that the Aga Khan Museum in Toronto is taking the Space Mosque show to the next level. And inshallah, in October, the Space Mosque show opens in Aga Khan. We have several new pieces that are coming out. I'm very excited about one. Actually, I'm excited about them. They're all children. You can't not be excited about them. But like, for example, one of the things that happened during that phenomenon is there's a lot of people who don't have a spiritual affiliation and are just a-religious or atheists. But when you've got the spaceship in the sky and people's prayers are being realized, they want in on the action too. And so they start looking for spiritual connections and things like that. And this actually gave rise to new religions during that time. And one of those new religions was the religion of music. People started finding God in music and melodies and things like that. So I have a synthesizer as one of the artifacts from that time. And it's a synthesizer that anybody can play. My mother can play it. because you don't need musical knowledge to know. All you need to know is your feelings. And all the dials are feelings. So ego, anxiety, memory, past, all of these things, and you can dial them and change them around, and it changes the sound and the melody of this particular ambient synthesizer piece. So similar to it, there's going to be a lot of others. Some of the angel sculptures will be there. There will be lots of other stories from the phenomenon will be released for the first time in October. So if you happen to be in Toronto, I really recommend that. And then last thing is my Instagram. Please follow me. I am Saks, S-A-K-S __. Ever since October 7th, my following just came to a stop, complete halt. I used to get 500 new followers a month, and then, you start speaking up and it stops. So it'd be great if you could all continue, following, supporting. We all need to kind of help each other out. And that way we can also stay in touch. And with that, I will say thank you. And I don't know if there's time for Q&A, but I can open it up. Thank you.